The massive research vessel hung in orbit around the small blue planet, while the alien crew prepared for another collection mission. Zalith stood at the observation window, her tall, slender form reflecting in the glass, her skin a pale lavender, with delicate scale patterns that shimmered under the light. She had studied many species across the galaxy, but humans fascinated her the most. Commander Vrex approached from behind his heavy footsteps, announcing his presence before he spoke. Our scouts have identified suitable specimens from the northern continent, isolated enough that their disappearances will not cause immediate alarm. Zalith nodded without turning. Her 4 eyes remained fixed on the planet below. She had been waiting for this mission for many cycles. The collection team departed in 3 small shuttles cloaked from detection by human technology. Zalith watched from the command center as they entered the atmosphere, her anticipation growing with each passing moment. This would be her first opportunity to study humans up close, rather than through recorded observations from previous missions. 12 hours later, the shuttles returned, the specimens secured in stasis chambers for transport to the research facility. Zalith hurried to the receiving bay where the medical team prepared to process the new arrivals. 7 human females and 5 males, all selected for their diverse genetic profiles and psychological evaluations, conducted through remote surveillance. The humans would believe they had volunteered for a sleep study at a remote research facility. Their memories altered to prevent panic or resistance. It was standard procedure for all specimen collections across the galaxy. The Jarkai Empire prided itself on ethical research practices even while studying potential planetary acquisitions. Zalith focused her attention on one particular specimen, a female with unusual genetic markers that suggested enhanced adaptability, according to preliminary scans. Her name was Amy Wilson. A teacher from a small settlement, she had been chosen specifically because of her problem-solving abilities demonstrated in her daily life. The processing took several hours, each human carefully examined and implanted, with monitoring devices disguised as innocuous skin blemishes before being placed in individual living quarters designed to mimic their natural habitat. Zalith observed the procedure with scientific detachment, though something about the peaceful expression on Amy's face as she slept troubled her slightly. When the humans awoke, they would be told they were participating in a 3-month research study on human adaptation to isolated environments. They would have limited contact with each other and regular interaction with researchers disguised to appear human. The deception was necessary to obtain authentic behavioral data. Amy was the 3rd specimen to awake her vital signs, registering confusion, then calm acceptance as the altered memories took effect. Zalith watched through monitoring systems as the human oriented herself in the small apartment, like space, examining her surroundings, with a curiosity that seemed unusual compared to other specimens. Zalith entered her observations. In the research log, specimen shows heightened awareness of environment, immediately cataloging potential resources and exit points. Behavior suggests above-average survival instinct. She will be particularly valuable for studying human response to stress and fear, the primary focus of Zalith's research. The Jarkai Empire had encountered many species in their expansion throughout the galaxy, most easily dominated through fear or force, but initial contact with humans suggested they responded differently to threats, sometimes becoming more dangerous when frightened. Understanding this response would be crucial if the Empire decided to add Earth to their territory. For the first week, Zalith observed Amy from a distance, noting her daily routines and interactions with the research staff. The human showed remarkable adaptability, quickly establishing rapport with her handlers and organizing her living space efficiently. Zalith found herself spending more time monitoring Amy than the other specimens. On the 8th day, Zalith decided to interact with Amy directly, disguising herself with the holographic technology that made Jarkai appear human. She prepared a series of subtle tests designed to identify fear responses. She entered Amy's quarters carrying a tablet with seemingly routine questions. Amy looked up from the book she was reading, her expression curious, but not alarmed, as Zalith introduced herself as Dr. Green, a new researcher on the project. Their conversation began with standard questions about comfort and health, but Zalith gradually introduced more probing psychological inquiries. What would you do if you discovered this facility was not what it appears to be? Zalith asked, watching closely for micro expressions that might reveal fear. Amy seemed to consider the question thoughtfully before answering. I would try to understand why the deception was necessary before deciding how to respond. Trust is built on honesty, but sometimes there are good reasons for keeping certain truths hidden. Zalith found the answer unexpected. Most specimens would immediately express concern or fear at the suggestion of deception. Amy seemed to consider possibilities beyond her immediate safety. The response was noted in Zalith's growing file of observations about this particular human. Over the next few days, Zalith continued her observations of all the specimens, but found herself returning to Amy's monitors most frequently. The human female had begun connecting with other specimens during their limited interaction periods, particularly with another female called Olivia Carter and a male named Peter Kim. The three humans had started exchanging information about their experiences in the facility. Comparing notes about the researchers and tests they had undergone, Zalith found their collaboration concerning but potentially valuable for understanding human social dynamics. She decided not to intervene, but to observe how their relationship developed. On the 15th day of the study, an equipment malfunction caused a temporary power outage in the facility. The emergency systems activated immediately, but for 7 minutes the security monitors were offline. When systems were restored, Amy and 2 other specimens were found in the corridor outside their living quarters. Security protocols demanded immediate isolation and memory adjustment for specimens who violated containment. But Zalith intervened, requesting permission to use the incident as a research opportunity. The 3 humans were returned to their quarters without adjustment, while Zalith prepared a new series of tests to evaluate their response to the breach commander. Vrex was not pleased with the deviation from protocol. These specimens are becoming too aware of their surroundings. It compromises the integrity of our research, he warned during the staff meeting. But Zalith defended her decision. The purpose of our mission is to understand human behavior, including how they respond to unexpected opportunities. The following day, Zalith visited Amy again, this time without disguise, revealing her true Jarkai form. The test was dangerous but authorized under strict security protocols. The human's reaction would provide valuable data about fear responses to alien physiology. Zalith entered the room while Amy was sleeping and waited for her to awake. When Amy opened her eyes and saw the alien figure by her bed, she froze, her heart rate spiking according to the monitors. But what happened next surprised everyone watching. The human female sat up slowly, her expression shifting from shock to intense curiosity. Rather than screaming or attacking as previous test subjects had done, she simply said, "You're not human, are you?" Zalith had been prepared for many responses, but not this calm inquiry. She stood perfectly still, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she processed the unexpected reaction. "No, I am not," she replied. Finally, "I am Jarkai, from a system you would call Proxima Centauri, though that is not our name for it." Amy nodded as if this information merely confirmed a suspicion. "I thought there was something strange about this place," she said, her voice remarkably steady. "Are all the researchers like you behind those human faces?" Zalith found herself answering truthfully, though it went against protocol. "Yes, we are studying your species, instead of fear." Amy showed fascination, asking questions about the Jarkai, their world, their technology. Zalith answered cautiously, aware that Commander Vrex would be watching this exchange with growing concern. But the opportunity to gather this data was too valuable to waste. The human was demonstrating an exceptional capacity for adaptation. When security finally ended the session, Amy was scheduled for immediate memory adjustment. But Zalith again intervened, this time going directly to the mission director. "This specimen shows remarkable potential for further study. Altering her memory now would waste valuable research opportunities. We have never observed such a response before." The mission director, Calax, was a seasoned researcher with hundreds of species studies behind her. She reviewed the footage of Amy's interaction with Zalith multiple times before making her decision. This was indeed unprecedented in all their encounters with humans. Such calm acceptance of alien contact had never been documented. "Permission granted," Calax said finally, "but with conditions. The specimen must remain in isolation from others, and all interactions must be recorded for the Science Council. This deviation from protocol requires thorough documentation." Zalith agreed immediately, though she felt an unusual concern about keeping Amy separated from the other humans she had bonded with. Amy was moved to a new living space more comfortable than before, but with enhanced security measures Zalith visited daily, no longer using her human disguise. Their conversations ranged from simple cultural exchanges to complex discussions about physics and philosophy. Zalith found herself impressed by the humans' quick understanding of concepts that had taken Jarkai younglings years to master. "Tell me about Earth," Amy asked during their 7th session together. Zalith hesitated. The protocol strictly limited what information could be shared with specimens, but Amy's continuing cooperation seemed to justify some reciprocity. "We have been observing your planet for nearly 50 of your years," Zalith admitted. "Humans are unique among the species we have studied. How many other species have you studied?" Amy asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Thousands," Zalith replied, "across hundreds of star systems. The Jarkai Empire spans what you would call 3,000 light-years. We are an ancient civilization." Amy nodded, absorbing this information. With remarkable calm, most humans would experience existential distress at such revelations. "Do the others here know they're being studied by aliens?" Amy asked, after a thoughtful pause. "No," Zalith answered. "They believe they are participating in a human research project. Their memories have been adjusted. The technology seemed to malfunction with you, though. We don't understand why." Amy smiled slightly at this. "Your memory technology assumed I would reject what I see. But I've always believed we weren't alone in the universe." Meanwhile, Commander Vrex had been monitoring these exchanges with growing concern. The human female was extracting too much information while providing too little of value. He called an emergency meeting with the mission director. "This specimen presents a security risk to the entire operation. She is manipulating our researcher to gain knowledge of our capabilities." Kalax reviewed the latest interaction logs before responding. "The risk appears minimal. Commander, the specimen remains contained, and researcher Zalith is gathering unprecedented data on human cognitive adaptation. The Science Council is particularly interested in this case." Vrex was not satisfied. "Humans are deceptive by nature, this one more than most. I recommend immediate memory adjustment and return to standard protocols." The disagreement escalated to the point where the Science Council itself was consulted, a rare occurrence during an active research mission, while awaiting their decision. Zalith continued her sessions with Amy, unaware that each interaction was being scrutinized by the highest authorities of the Jarkai Empire. During their 12th session, Amy surprised Zalith with a request. "I want to meet your commander, the one who watches our conversations from behind the mirrored wall." Zalith froze. "How did you know about Vrex?" Amy smiled gently. "You look at that wall whenever you discuss something sensitive. Body language is similar across species." It seems Zalith reported the request, expecting immediate rejection. Instead, Kalax saw an opportunity to test the human's perceptiveness and possibly resolve Vrex's concerns. The commander reluctantly agreed to one brief meeting, though he insisted on bringing security personnel. When Vrex entered Amy's quarters, his imposing form filling the doorway, Zalith watched carefully for signs of fear. Finally, the human would show the response they had been expecting, but Amy merely stood and offered the greeting gesture Zalith had taught her. "Welcome, Commander. I appreciate you taking the time to meet me." Vrex remained coldly formal, stating immediately that he considered her a potential threat to the research mission. Amy listened calmly before responding. "I understand your concern, but consider this: if I wanted to disrupt your mission, I could have pretended to believe I was in a human facility while looking for ways to escape. Instead, I've chosen honesty with you, as you are now choosing with me." The commander was not easily swayed. "Why should we trust you? Humans are known for deception even among your own kind." Amy nodded, acknowledging the point. "Some are, yes, but deception requires a benefit. What would I gain by deceiving you here? I am one human among advanced aliens with technology beyond my understanding. My best chance for survival and eventual return home is cooperation." Zalith noticed something change in Vrex's posture, a subtle relaxation that suggested Amy's directness had affected him. "Return home," he repeated. "You assume we plan to release you after our research?" Amy's expression remained steady, of course, otherwise. "Why maintain the elaborate pretense of a research study? You could simply keep us in cells if you never intended to return us." The logic was flawless and demonstrated a clear understanding of their methods that even Rex could not dismiss. After the meeting, he reported to Kallax that, while he still had reservations, the human showed remarkable perception. The risk might be outweighed by the research potential. Kallax seemed pleased by this assessment. The Science Council will be most interested in this development. As the days passed, Zalith began introducing Amy to more complex aspects of Jarkai culture and science. Each interaction, carefully recorded and analyzed by the research team, the human absorbed information at a remarkable rate, asking insightful questions that sometimes revealed gaps in Zalith's own understanding. Occasionally, Amy would point out connections between concepts that the Jarkai had not considered. The Science Council eventually rendered their decision the research would continue, with expanded parameters. Amy would be permitted limited access to other areas of the facility, under strict supervision. Kallax delivered the news personally, adding that the Council was considering allowing interaction with other specimens, particularly the two Amy had connected with earlier. Amy received this news with gratitude, but also with a request of her own. If I'm to continue helping with your research, I want something in return. Zalith tensed. Such negotiation was unprecedented from a specimen. But Kallax seemed intrigued. What do you propose? Human Amy met the director's 4 eyes without hesitation. I want honest information about why you're really studying humans. The question hung in the air between them. Kallax glanced at Zalith before responding carefully. We study all sentient species we encounter. It is the primary mission of our science division. Amy shook her head slightly, not accepting the evasion. But there must be a specific reason you've dedicated such resources to humans hiding among us, instead of open contact. Kallax considered her options before speaking again. Your species is unique. In our experience, you advance rapidly technologically, but remain divided socially. Your capacity for both creation and destruction exceeds any species we've encountered at your development stage. You pose both opportunity and risk to the Empire. The Science Council wishes to understand which outweighs the other. Amy absorbed this, then asked the question Zalith had been dreading. And if we are deemed a risk, what happens then? Kallax's answer was measured but honest. That determination has not been made yet. The data we gather here will influence that decision. Amy nodded slowly, understanding the implications. Her cooperation could potentially affect the future of her entire species. Zalith found herself troubled by this exchange, though. It was merely an explicit statement of what she had always known was the purpose of their mission. Something about seeing Amy's face as she realized her role in this larger context awakened an uncomfortable feeling in Zalith. Something the Jarkai rarely experienced doubt. That night, Zalith reviewed all her research notes on human behavior, looking for patterns that might help the Science Council see what she was beginning to recognize. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their capacity for adaptation and cooperation might be more valuable to the Empire than their subjugation. If only she could prove this hypothesis. The next morning, Zalith was surprised to find Amy waiting for her with a proposal of her own. I want to show you something about humans that you can learn by keeping us separated in controlled environments. Zalith was immediately wary. What do you mean? Amy leaned forward, her expression intense. Bring me Olivia and Peter. Let us interact naturally without intervention. You might be surprised by what you learn. Zalith took Amy's proposal to Kallax, expecting resistance. But the research director was intrigued by the possibility of observing natural human social dynamics in a controlled setting. After consulting with the Science Council, permission was granted. For a limited trial, 3 humans would be allowed to interact in a common area under careful observation. When Olivia and Peter were brought to the new shared space, their memories had been partially adjusted to accept the presence of the Jarkai, without fear, but they had no knowledge of previous interactions with Amy. The researchers wanted to observe their natural reunion without contamination from earlier experiences. Amy waited in the common area, a large room designed to resemble an Earth-style lounge with comfortable seating and simple recreational options. When the door opened and her friends entered, she rushed forward, embracing them both with visible emotion. Zalith observed this physical contact with interest, noting how it seemed to communicate more than words could. The 3 humans spent hours talking, sharing their experiences and perceptions of the facility. Peter had recognized inconsistencies in the research narrative early on, while Olivia had focused on mapping the facility by counting steps during escorted movements together. They had compiled more information than the researchers realized. Humans were proving more observant than anticipated. Zalith watched from the observation room alongside Calax and Frex, the commander, growing increasingly concerned as the humans openly discussed their situation. "They know too much," he said, his voice low. "This confirms my suspicions. They have been communicating through some method we haven't detected." Calax raised a hand for silence. "Let us continue observing. The interaction is revealing." Amy eventually explained to her friends what she had learned about the Jarkai, their vast empire, and the purpose of the research study. Their reactions were mixed, Peter expressing anger at the deception, while Olivia asked practical questions about what this meant for their future. Amy calmly addressed both perspectives. "We have an opportunity here to represent humanity, to show them what we're truly capable of," the three began, formulating a plan not for escape as the observers expected, but for demonstration. Amy proposed they show the Jarkai how humans solve problems collaboratively, explaining that their captors were evaluating whether humans were a threat or potential asset to their empire. "Our best chance of returning home and protecting Earth is to prove we're worth more as allies than as subjects." Zalith was stunned by this approach. She had expected fear leading to escape attempts or aggression. Instead, humans were adapting to their reality and strategizing within it. Calax seemed equally impressed while Rex remained suspicious. "They are performing for us," he insisted, knowing we're watching. Over the following days, the three humans were given increasingly complex problems to solve, requiring cooperation and creative thinking. They were tested both together and separately to evaluate how they shared information and supported each other. Results consistently showed that they performed better collectively than the sum of their individual capabilities, a phenomenon the Jarkai research team had rarely observed in other species. Amy requested more participants be added to their group, arguing that human social dynamics were more complex and effective. In larger numbers, Calax approved, bringing the total to 7 humans in the common area. The new additions requiring similar memory adjustments to accept their situation without panic. The expanded group quickly established a social hierarchy, though not the rigid structure Zalith expected. Leadership seemed to shift based on the task at hand, with different humans taking charge according to their strengths. Another unexpected adaptation that challenged Jarkai assumptions about effective organization. During this period, Zalith continued her private conversations with Amy, learning more about Earth cultures and human perspectives. These sessions became increasingly valuable to the research, as Amy helped interpret behaviors that confused the alien observers, explaining nuances of human interaction that would otherwise be missed. Researcher Zalith is becoming too close to the specimen. Vrex reported to the Science Council. Her objectivity is compromised. I recommend her reassignment. Calax defended her subordinate, arguing that this connection was providing unprecedented insights into human psychology. Zalith remained on the project, but with additional oversight. 90 days into the expanded study, Amy requested a meeting with the research leadership. She had a proposal to present on behalf of the human group. Calax granted the request with the entire senior staff present. Amy explained that the humans had been discussing their situation and had reached a conclusion. We understand why you're studying us, Amy began, and we recognize the concerns your empire might have about our species, but containment and deception will never give you accurate information about humanity at our best or worst. If you truly want to understand us, you need to observe us in our natural environment. The room was silent as she continued. We propose a different approach. We know you have technology to monitor us without detection. Return us to Earth with your observers. Allow us to remember this encounter and serve as conscious points of contact. We can provide insights your hidden observers would miss. Rex immediately objected. This would violate every protocol we have, the security risk alone. Calax raised a hand, allowing Amy to finish. Before responding, the human continued. You fear our potential for violence, but fail to recognize our capacity for growth. Every species has likely faced the challenges we're navigating. Now, how did the Jarkai overcome their own destructive tendencies? This question struck Accord with the assembled researchers their own history included a period of violent factionalism. Before their unification, many had forgotten this uncomfortable aspect of their development, preferring to view their species as inherently cooperative, and rational Amy had identified a blind spot in their perspective. Calax spoke carefully after consideration. Your proposal has merit but exceeds my authority to approve. The Science Council must evaluate such a significant protocol change. In the meantime, we will continue our current research approach. Amy accepted this response, though Zalith could sense her disappointment. That night, the facility experienced another power disruption more severe than the previous one, lasting nearly 30 minutes. When systems were restored, 3 humans were missing from the common area. Including Amy, emergency protocols were immediately activated, the facility locked down, and search teams deployed. Virex took command, suspecting a coordinated escape attempt. Zalith joined the search, concerned about what would happen to the humans if they were found. She knew escape was impossible. The facility was located in a self-contained dimension, pocket accessible only through controlled portals. The humans would be trapped and likely face severe consequences for the attempt. The missing humans were located in the communication center. Amy had somehow accessed the secure area and was attempting to send a message. The security team surrounded them. Weapons ready, but Zalith pushed forward, requesting permission to speak with Amy first. Noting that no actual damage had been done to the equipment, Amy. Why? Zalith asked when they were alone. The human looked tired but determined. We needed to prove a point. She said, you've been testing us for months now. We decided to test you as well. We could have damaged your systems or attempted to access restricted information. Instead, we merely demonstrated the capability and waited to be found. Zalith was confused. What point does this prove? Amy smiled slightly. That humans can be trusted to act rationally even when taking risks. Your commander expects us to behave destructively, but we chose restraint. We wanted to demonstrate that even when we appear threatening, we can show control. The explanation was taken to Calax, who found it intriguing rather than alarming. She ordered the humans returned to the common area with increased security but no punishment. A decision Vrex strongly opposed. They breached our most sensitive systems and you reward them with leniency. He argued. Calax responded calmly. They had opportunity for significant damage, yet chose restraint. That behavior deserves study, not punishment. The Science Council reviewed the incident and made an unexpected decision. The research parameters would be expanded. A controlled test of Amy's proposal would be implemented. 3 humans, including Amy, would be returned to Earth with their memories intact, serving as conscious research subjects and potential liaisons. The preparations began immediately. Special monitoring implants were designed undetectable by Earth technology, but allowing continuous observation. The selected humans underwent extensive briefing on communication protocols and boundaries of information sharing. Zalith worked directly with Amy during this preparation process, their relationship now acknowledged as a formal research partnership. As the return date approached, Zalith found herself experiencing an unfamiliar emotion at the thought of Amy's departure. She had grown accustomed to their daily interactions and the human perspective that challenged her thinking. The Science Council noted this connection with interest, assigning Zalith as the primary contact. For the Earth-based research team, Amy studied Zalith's face with an intensity that made the researcher uncomfortable. Have you considered that you might be changed by this experience the same way we are? She asked. I don't think you can spend this much time understanding another species without it affecting your perspective. Zalith had no ready answer for this observation, though she recognized its potential truth. The return process was complex, requiring precise calibration of the dimensional portal to deliver the humans to the exact locations from which they had been taken with minimal time disruption to avoid suspicion. Amy, Olivia, and Peter had been selected as the test group, each returning to different geographic areas to maximize data collection across varied human communities. Before entering the portal, Amy embraced Zalith, a gesture that startled the researcher, but one she found herself returning awkwardly. Remember what you've learned about us, she whispered, when the Empire makes its decision. And then she was gone. The portal closing behind her, Zalith stood motionless for several moments, processing the unexpected physical contact and the emotion it had generated. The Earth observation phase began immediately, the research team monitoring the returned humans through their implants collecting data on their reintegration, and observing how they applied their knowledge of the Jarkai study. Amy returned to her teaching position, but with subtle changes in her curriculum emphasizing cooperation problem-solving and cosmic perspective. Kallax assigned Zalith to lead the observation team, a position that kept her connected to Amy. Though now only as a distant watcher, the separation created an unusual sense of loss that Zalith had never experienced. With previous research subjects, she found herself especially attentive to Amy's daily activities, noting changes in behavior and social interactions that might not have seemed significant to other observers. 3 months into the Earth observation phase, Amy did something unexpected. She began writing a children's book, a fictional story about humans meeting aliens. The narrative cleverly disguised the actual Jarkai encounter, but contained authentic insights about cross-species communication and cooperation. Zalith recognized it as a method of preparing young humans for the possibility of contact without revealing the truth for Rex, who had been assigned to oversee security. For the Earth observation, saw the book as a breach of protocol. She is revealing restricted information in coded form. He argued during a research review. Zalith defended the action, noting that fiction about alien contact was common in human culture. Amy's book would not be seen as factual by other humans, but might subconsciously prepare them for eventual contact. The Science Council reviewed the manuscript and surprisingly approved its publication, seeing it as an opportunity to observe how human society received such ideas. The book was published under a pseudonym but gained unexpected popularity among human educators for its themes of understanding across differences. Meanwhile, Peter and Olivia were making their own contributions. Peter had shifted his medical research toward xenobiology, though disguised as theoretical work, while Olivia had joined an international cooperation initiative focused on global problem-solving, both applying their Jarkai insights without revealing their source. 6 months into the observation, Zalith noticed concerning patterns in the data from Earth. Human technologies were advancing more rapidly than previous projections had suggested, particularly in areas that might eventually detect Jarkai presence. Climate degradation was accelerating, and political tensions between major powers were intensifying. The stability of human civilization appeared increasingly precarious. These developments prompted an emergency session of the Science Council, with presentations from the research team. Rex argued that the data confirmed humans were too unstable to be trusted with knowledge of other civilizations, recommending minimal contact and continued covert study. Zalith found herself taking the opposing position, presenting evidence of human adaptability and cooperative potential even in crisis. The debate continued for days without resolution, until Kallax proposed an unprecedented approach: direct consultation with the test subjects. The 3 humans who had been returned to Earth would be temporarily brought back to the facility to provide their perspectives on human readiness for contact. The Science Council approved this proposal, though with significant security restrictions. Amy was the first to be retrieved from Earth, arriving through the portal with remarkable composure considering the abrupt transition. When she saw Zalith waiting in the arrival chamber, she smiled warmly. "So you miss me already?" she joked, though her eyes showed understanding of the serious circumstances. The 3 humans were briefed on the purpose of their recall and given access to the concerning data about Earth. Amy reviewed the information carefully before responding. "Your projections focus on our problems without recognizing how they drive our solutions," she explained. "Humans often need crisis to overcome our divisions. The very instability you fear is what pushes us toward the unity you're looking for." Peter added his perspective on human technological development, pointing out that advancement often outpaced social readiness, creating temporary imbalances that eventually corrected. "We develop tools before fully understanding their implications, but we adapt quickly," he argued, citing historical examples of technologies that initially caused disruption, but ultimately led to stability. Olivia addressed the political tensions, explaining that international cooperation was actually increasing in key areas. Despite public rhetoric, the real work happens away from headlines, she noted, with experts collaborating. Across borders on existential challenges, humans compete openly but cooperate quietly. The Science Council listened with interest to these human perspectives, though Vrex remained skeptical, arguing that the test subjects were not representative of human leadership. Their optimistic assessment contradicted by observable behavior among those with actual power on their planet. During a break in the proceedings, Amy sought out Zalith for a private conversation. "How are you?" she asked, genuinely concerned. "You've been watching us for months now. What have you learned?" Zalith hesitated before answering truthfully that she found herself increasingly questioning the Empire's approach to other species. "Your perspective has influenced my thinking in uncomfortable ways," she admitted. Amy nodded, understanding. "I expected that might happen when you truly study another being. You can't help but see yourself differently," she said gently. "Have you shared these thoughts with your leaders?" Zalith admitted she had not. Certain perspectives were not welcomed in official discussions. The Empire had existed for millennia, following established protocols for species assessment. Perhaps those protocols need updating. Amy suggested, "Just as we need to evolve our approach to other species, so might the Jarkai." The thought was dangerously close to heresy, but Zalith could not dismiss it entirely. The council deliberations continued for days, the humans participating in discussions that had never before included non-Jarkai perspectives. Even Vrex began to show reluctance to dismiss their insights entirely, recognizing that direct interaction provided context that remote observation could not. Finally, a compromise approach was proposed by Calax. Instead of making an immediate determination about Earth, a longer observation period would be implemented with limited conscious contact expanded beyond the 3 test subjects to include a carefully selected group of human leaders, scientists, and cultural figures, who would be gradually introduced to the reality of the Jarkai. This controlled revelation would allow for assessment of human reaction. Without risking full disclosure, the Empire would maintain its hidden position while establishing potential channels for future cooperation. The test subjects would help identify appropriate candidates for inclusion in this expanded awareness group. The proposal satisfied neither those who wanted continued secrecy nor those advocating for open contact, but it represented a middle path that acknowledged the complexity of the situation. The Science Council approved the plan with a 5-year implementation timeline subject to ongoing review. When the decision was announced, Amy expressed both satisfaction and concern. "It's a start," she acknowledged. "But the secrecy creates its own risks. If your presence is discovered accidentally, rather than revealed intentionally, the reaction could be much worse." Calax acknowledged this risk, but maintained that gradual approach was necessary given the stakes. As preparations began for their return to Earth, Amy requested another private meeting with Zalith. "I want you to come with me," she said directly, "as my liaison. It would make sense for you to observe firsthand, rather than through implants." Zalith was startled by the suggestion such direct involvement would be unprecedented. Researchers always maintained separation from their subjects. "I would need to alter my appearance," Zalith said, "considering the practical challenges. Humans are not ready to see Zarkai in our natural form." Amy smiled. "Not all humans," she countered. "Some of us are quite ready." The comment carried meanings that Zalith found both professionally interesting and personally affecting. The request was brought to Calax, who recognized potential research value in having a trained observer on site. Advanced holographic technology could disguise Zalith as human. While allowing her to function normally, the proposal went to the Science Council, where it generated significant debate about protocol and safety. The day of departure arrived, Zalith saying farewell to her research team and entering the portal alongside Amy. The transition was disorienting but brief. They emerged in a small clearing near Amy's rural home, under cover of night. The perfect arrival. Time to avoid unwanted observation. Zalith activated her holographic disguise, her tall Jarkai form, shimming into that of a human woman with features designed to appear unremarkable to other humans. Amy led her to the small house she called home, a modest structure surrounded by trees and gardens. Zalith had seen it countless times through monitoring systems, but experiencing it physically was entirely different. The smells, sounds, and sensations overwhelming her highly sensitive Jarkai perception systems. This direct exposure to Earth was far more intense than any simulation had prepared her for. The cover story was simple. Zalith, now called Elizabeth Green, was a visiting researcher collaborating with Amy On educational methods, they had arranged the necessary documentation through the limited network of humans now aware of the Jarkai presence, including a university administrator who provided appropriate credentials. The first weeks were challenging. Zalith struggled with basic human interactions, often missing social cues or responding inappropriately to casual comments. Amy patiently corrected these errors, explaining contexts and guiding her through the complex, unspoken rules that governed human social behavior. The learning curve was steep even for a seasoned xenoanthropologist. Zalith filed detailed reports to the observation team documenting her experiences and insights that could not be captured through remote monitoring, her perspective as both researcher and participant providing unique value to the study. The Science Council received these reports with great interest, recognizing the unprecedented nature of this embedded research approach. 3 months into her Earth assignment, Zalith accompanied Amy to an educational conference where they presented research on collaborative learning methods. The content subtly incorporated insights from the Jarkai study. Though framed entirely in human contexts, the presentation was well received, generating interest from other educators who recognized the innovative approach without understanding its true origin. During the conference, Zalith encountered her first emergency, when a technical glitch caused her holographic disguise to flicker briefly. In a crowded elevator, Amy quickly created a distraction, allowing Zalith to adjust the device before anyone noticed the momentary lapse. The incident highlighted the precarious nature of her position and the constant vigilance required to maintain. Her cover-A's months passed. Zalith found herself adapting to human life in unexpected ways. She developed preferences for certain foods, music, and daily routines. She began to understand humor, which had always been particularly challenging for Jarkai researchers to analyze. She even caught herself using human gestures and expressions when not necessary for her disguise. Most concerning to her scientific objectivity, she began forming emotional connections with humans beyond Amy becoming friends. With neighbors and colleagues, these relationships complicated her role as an observer. She noted this development in her reports, questioning whether her experience remained scientifically valid as her perspective shifted. The observation team, led by Calax in Zalith's absence, debated this question extensively, some arguing that her growing integration compromised the research, while others maintained that this deep immersion provided insights impossible to gain through traditional methods. The Science Council ultimately decided that the value outweighed the concerns, though they implemented additional review protocols for her reports. Meanwhile, the network of humans aware of the Jarkai presence expanded carefully as Amy, Peter, and Olivia identified trustworthy individuals in key positions. Each new addition underwent thorough psychological evaluation before being approached with partial information, gauging their reaction before full disclosure was considered. 1 year into the Earth assignment, a crisis emerged. A private space exploration company launched a probe with sensors capable of detecting the dimensional signatures of Jarkai technology, including the observation posts in Earth orbit. The discovery of alien monitoring stations would create exactly the uncontrolled revelation scenario. The gradual contact approach was designed to prevent. Zalith reported the threat immediately, the Science Council considering options ranging from probe destruction to accelerated disclosure. Ultimately, they authorized a controlled intervention. The human members of the awareness network would approach the company leaders, revealing enough information to redirect the probe while bringing these influential figures into the disclosure process. The intervention succeeded, the probe mission modified under the guise of technical improvements, the company leadership joining the growing network of humans preparing for eventual broader contact. This crisis, though, concerning demonstrated the effectiveness of the collaborative approach. Each such incident managed successfully strengthened the case for human readiness. Throughout this period, Zalith continued her deep immersion in human life, experiencing Earth through direct participation rather than clinical observation. She attended cultural events, formed relationships, and encountered the full spectrum of human emotion, finding herself changed by these experiences in ways that both troubled and fascinated her. During a rare private communication with Vrex, now promoted to oversee all Earth operations, the commander expressed concern about her transformation. "You are becoming more human than Jarkai in your thinking," he noted, reviewing her recent reports. "Your scientific objectivity is compromised." Zalith could not entirely disagree, though she defended the value of her perspective. 2 years into her assignment, Zalith faced an unexpected personal challenge when a human colleague expressed romantic interest in her. The situation uncovered complexities in her identity and role. She had not anticipated her disguise was physical. Only her mind remained Jarkai, yet she found herself capable of emotional response to this human connection, a phenomenon she documented with both scientific curiosity and personal confusion. Amy provided perspective when Zalith shared this development. "You're experiencing the most fundamental human challenge," she explained, "reconciling what we are with what we feel, and what we choose. Emotions inform us but don't control us unless we allow them to." The insight helped Zalith navigate the situation, though questions about her evolving identity remained. 3 years into the experiment, the network of humans aware of the Jarkai presence had grown to over 100 individuals, strategically positioned across governments, scientific institutions, and cultural organizations, each carefully selected and prepared for their role in the eventual wider revelation. This infrastructure of understanding was designed to manage humanity's introduction to galactic civilization when the time came. The Science Council continued monitoring Earth's development with particular attention to technological advancement, environmental challenges, and political stability. The data showed concerning trends but also remarkable resilience and adaptation. Human civilization, despite its apparent chaos, demonstrated surprising robustness in crisis. 4 years into the assignment, a breakthrough occurred in human quantum physics, bringing Earth science dangerously close to discovering the dimensional technology the Jarkai used for interstellar travel. The Science Council debated intervention, but ultimately decided this development represented an important threshold in human readiness. The awareness network would guide this discovery rather than suppress it. Throughout this period, Zalith continued her dual existence as researcher and participant, her reports becoming increasingly nuanced as her understanding of humanity deepened. She documented not just observable behaviors, but the complex motivations and contradictions that drove human action. Her analysis reflected growing appreciation for the species she had come to live among. In the final months of the 5-year observation phase, Zalith was recalled temporarily to present her conclusions directly to the Science Council, her appearance before them creating a stir as she now exhibited mannerisms and expressions distinctly human in nature, even while in her natural Jarkai form, evidence of deep adaptive changes to her neural patterns. Her testimony lasted several days as she presented detailed analysis of human development potential and readiness for contact. Her conclusion was clear and unexpected. Humans were not merely ready for inclusion in galactic civilization, but potentially vital to it. Their adaptability, creativity, and unique approach to problem-solving representing valuable contributions to the wider community of sentient species. The Science Council received this assessment with mixed reactions, some members dismissing it as the bias of an observer too deeply embedded, others recognizing the unprecedented nature and value of her experience. Ultimately, they reached no immediate consensus, extending the observation period for another 3 years, while expanding the preparation network on Earth. When Zalith returned to Earth, she found herself experiencing an emotion she identified as relief. Her life among humans had become more than a research assignment. It had become in some sense home, though she maintained her scientific purpose. She now acknowledged the personal transformation the mission had created.